Good evening. It is Sunday, March 4th, 2018, and welcome to the 27th Annual Shark Academy Awards here on Teal USA After Dark. All the best celebrities will be here, as this is an Oscar-nominated Sharks Interactive Postgame show. I am joined by Mr. Eric Landy. How are you, good sir? Looking ravishing, and what are you wearing this evening?
I'm wearing the San Jose Sharks gray kind of shirt. I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like a varsity mini sweater kind of deal. I don't know, but yeah.
Oh boy, what a game. Nonetheless, good evening, everyone. I am yours truly, Eric Curry. You can also find me on the Twitter machine at PuckGuy14. And of course, if you want to be a part of the show, come on, you darn thing. Why don't you pop up for me for once? Darn it. Oh, well. If you want to be a part of the show, by all means, use the hashtag TealTownUSA on the Twitter machine, or you can always look for us in the YouTube chat on the page or the app. Of course, now it goes. Perfect. There you go. So always make sure to also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, and the YouTube. All right. As we get going, oh, beautiful ensemble there, folks. Landy, just give a brief look into what did you think of this game this evening?
I'm pissed. No, that literally that was the way I boiled down to this game. The Sharks kind of waded into the game tonight, and geez, we didn't see any life until maybe the last 5 minutes of the second period, and geez, just horrible. I mean, the decision making was not good. The legs looked really weak out there. Hurdle, probably his worst performance in Teal in a long time, and was demoted because of it. He was taken off the first power play unit. He was put on the second power play unit. He also was
he went down to the third line, right?
Yeah, he was taken off of Couture's wing. So just not good, and it was kind of emblematic of the entire Sharks team. They just didn't look interested for the first, like I said, for the first period and three quarters.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest start by the Sharks, and we haven't even started banging on the power play drum, which now
we will.
Trust me, we will, because it's now 0 for 28, and we will get into that discussion earlier. But let's go. Let's press play and go on the first period. Columbus takes advantage of those power plays not being generating a scoring chance. Come down, Nick Foligno, who was scoring, or who was the recipient of a penalty, comes in, scores his 14th on the season from Calvert and Johnson at 9-12 to make it 1-0 Sharks. I thought that was a backbreaker early on, Landy, with them, scoring a goal after a power play where this team needed a power play goal so badly right then and there. Would have been a great boost for them to start.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the power play just looked completely lifeless. Quite honestly, the decision making was suspect at best. 3 offsides on one of those power plays, and quite frankly, it just I about had it with Burns. I really did, and was almost thinking, you know what, it's time to maybe bench him and Hurdle for the first shift of the power play and bring him onto the second unit, because his decision making was just not great.
And for that matter, too, if we're going to try anything and everything, let's park Burns in front of the goalie. Have that Tomas Holmstrom, guy that kind of gets in the way a little bit. And granted, yes, that's kind of Pavelski's thing, and Pavelski doesn't park in front of it. So,
the problem is, because they're not playing Heat, they don't have any other real offensive point man to play that spot. So it's really the power play flows through Burns right now, as much as we hate it. Until this team, or until Peter DeBoer finds a merit to put Tim Heed back in the lineup, they're not, they're going to go as Burns goes. They don't have another viable option to power play quarterback, unless you take Burns off, put Vlasic on, and put LeBanc on the other defensive spot. But again, you don't want Vlasic on the power play. I don't feel comfortable with DeMello on the power play.
Yeah.
So,
and Gen X in the chat, 0 for 28 sounds like my high school years. Hey-o! Oh, jeez. Oh, man. But yeah, something's got to give. You had 2 offsides, I think, on 1 power play alone. That's just unacceptable. That's just bad communication and knowing where everything is at. That's just you can't have that. You just can't. And unfortunately, yeah, and you know what? And Landy, Gen X is saying the same thing about you. How about, and hear me out here, Burns doesn't see the ice during the power play. Not like he can do worse. You know what? At most, it might force the Sharks to actually come up with something more creative. I think we were complaining about this before, when the whole idea was to rim the puck around the boards to get it to Joe on the half boards. And it's something that they can do differently.
Well, I mean, the problem is, I think right now it's just too predictable. The Sharks are really, really focused on putting that puck back to the point and trying to generate offense from the defense. And Columbus read it perfectly. And right now, the book on the Sharks is, if you're able to shut down 88, if you're able to shut down that point man, then you are going to shut down this power play. And right now, the Sharks have no other answer, no other viable option for power play quarterbacking. So, you're kind of stuck in the rock and a hard place, because the team struggled early out of the gate. They were 28th at the beginning of the season on the power play, then rocketed it up and was tied for second. And then now it's kind of stagnant in a different way. It just, the decision making hasn't been good. And I think you're missing Jumbo at this point. I think you really are missing Jumbo. And, for as much as this little Shark engine that could, doing as much as they could without Jumbo, I think we're starting to see why you're missing that one extra game breaker.
Yeah. In like some of the chat is saying, this is where you miss Jumbo the most, and absolutely you do, because with Jumbo and Burns, you have essentially 2 quarterbacks on the power play. You're not banking on that, and now you have one. Everybody's focusing on it. But what I was doing yesterday when I was bored and stuck in bed was looking at Game 7 against Nashville 2 years ago. And there was so much more flow in the Sharks power play. Yeah, Burnsy gets his shots from the point, but I think a couple of chances came from the middle of the ice, not just at that corner that Burnsy was at. So it just seems like they are just being stagnant, and they need a change.
It's interesting, because we do see that happen every once in a great while, where when the team goes cold on the power play, they get pushed to the exterior of the ice. They start generating shots above the circles, and they start having those shots come in from the blue line. And normally when this power play is at its most effective, you have cross ice passes, and you have guys that are in the slot ready to tip something home. That is really when this team is firing on all cylinders. Right now it's perimeter shots. Right now it's ones and dones. No real crashing of the net. Yep. No real chaos. Maybe we only saw it maybe at the end on the last power play that really kind of come in. And then, Eric, I want to ask you, what is up with the shot selection tonight? they were whiffing on shots left and right.
They were whiffing here and there on stuff, and it was just crazy how I will admit this, they had some good scoring chances throughout the game tonight, and it just seemed like they just weren't getting too many. You were either getting bad shots off, or then they had good shots, and then Sergei Bobrovsky stops them on them. And hats off to Bobrovsky tonight. My goodness, he had a stellar performance. That being said, there were a number of times where he was almost like using his glove and he was fighting it off, and it almost like, I don't want to say there's a weak glove side because he had some great chances, but Bobrovsky looked a little shaky here and there throughout the night. So it was a rough one all around, but they definitely had some chances. They could have had a better chances, but at this point, kudos to them for actually throwing it at the net on some of them. They definitely had some chances early on. It just wasn't going in for them, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I mean, it wasn't going in for them, but you also, I just kind of go back to that shot selection again and look how they scored their 2 goals. They scored it on a really, really nice tip from Donskoy, and they score on a deflection, and that's kind of the way that's well, not a deflection, but kind of a squeaker kind of puck when Kane is going against the grain and shoots it. I mean, that's how they were going to score. That was going to be the recipe for success tonight against Bobrovsky, and you saw it a little bit, but I don't think you saw it certainly enough. And you know what? I just go back to the poor start. I just don't understand why this team came out flat-footed. It was like they were disinterested. I posted to the guys and to the guys on the broadcast, to Randy and Hetty. I said, guys, it looks like they were prepared for a 7:30 puck drop tonight. And Randy commented back on me, is like, they're professional athletes. They wouldn't use that, and that's kind of a lame excuse in my opinion. Yeah, but still not take away from the fact that they looked flat. They looked flat.
Yeah, early on they looked flat, and it didn't help as we get back into the summary of it. Sonny Milano, on his 11th of the year from Jenner and Borkstrand, made it 2-0 late in the second. Let me ask you this about Martin Jones. As he let in a goal by Panarin, his 19th, about 5:32 into the second period, and he was eventually pulled. Jones saved 10 of 13 shots in about 25 minutes of gameplay tonight. What did you think of him on the night? Because I thought it could have gone either way. You could have blamed the defense on some of this, as I saw some like stop striding, and they were just like reaching out with their poke check, hoping that it would help with something.
Yeah, and, I think. Oh goodness, I don't necessarily fault Jones for goals 1 and 2. Goal 3 though was just completely. It was a whiff. He missed it, and I think not only that, but Peter DeBoer also picked out a pretty, a weapon that Tom McClellan used to use, quite frankly, quite often, was to pull the goalie and just to try and get the team some different mojo. And you know what? I mean, I think it did spark them a little bit, but it was maybe it was too late. Maybe he should have pulled him after the second goal,
or put Dell in to begin the second period. Maybe that would have been.
Yeah, that you could have gone immediately to that, because, like I said before, they just came out flat-footed. And you know what? Person number one, like I had in the opening, was Hurdle. Hurdle personified just how sluggish this team, this team came out. And everybody's pointing to the ice. They're saying the ice was bad, the ice was bad, their ice was bad. But look, Columbus scored 4 goals on this ice. Columbus came out tilting the ice tonight. they didn't have any problems with it. And if the ice is really that bad, then they need to simplify their game to where it's less reliant on passes and more reliant upon crashing the net.
Well, and see, here's the thing too, Landy, is that there's two things here. You make a good point about them, playing on the same ice. Sad to say, they play on the same ice, no doubt about it. If they're going to change that, then maybe you don't have the Barracuda play earlier today at 1:00. It's plain and simple on that part. I mean, it's just ridiculous how we can't use the ice anymore. People, there's no excuse for it. I mean, if we're going to blame the ice, then I think that's starting to become an excuse. And for that matter, if we're going to blame the ice, maybe the morning skate should be at the Shark Tank, not at Solar for America, so they can get used to it. During Twitter Mission Live with Brody and Kyle, they pretty much went with they were mentioning about the ice, but and they hit it on the head, like you said, Landy. They play on the same ice. It's not like it's a level playing field. It's what you do on that ice to make it happen.
Well, we go about that and we talk about that, but look, Columbus came out with more jump. Literally that they took it to the Sharks, and they had it on the telecast tonight. They looked like the team that was really, really desperate for points, and the Sharks just looked at lackadaisical. And you know what? I put that on the coaching staff. This team needs to be prepared, and quite frankly, it wasn't prepared tonight. And whether you want to blame that on the players for not showing up, or if you want to blame that on the coaching staff for just not having them prepared, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but it wasn't good. It was not a good look tonight.
Yeah. You know what's a really good look tonight? Your hoodie, by the way.
Oh, thank you. This one's kind of been in the rotation for a long time. It's got the old, kind of not the old school, but it's got the 3-star Western Conference.
Nice.
Nice. Yeah, and it's got the SJ.
That is a nice one.
Yeah.
Man, you are stylish tonight on this Oscar night.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really clean. I really kind of like this faux neckline with the nice what do we have here? Lace kind of look.
Mm-hmm. No, that looks solid. And you know what else looks solid? The Sharks late in the second period. Nice segue. As Jonas Donskoy just guessed just the tip of Dylan DeMello's shot. They finally get on the board. It's 3-1. Donskoy getting the things going. He needed something going, and he gets his 12th of the season there from DeMello and Evander Kane doing things. So I thought going into the third period, they started getting that momentum swing. And then halfway through the third, Evander Kane gets a nice pass, gets it in, beats Bobrovsky, and all of a sudden 3-2. And how I like to call these, they're teaser goals, because it's like once they get it, they just fall apart. But I thought in the third period, Landy, these guys were coming on strong. They had chances. They hit the post a couple of times too, for that matter.
Right. And I think that they just dug themselves so far a hole. And especially when you're playing against Sergei Bobrovsky, you can't spot them a 3-spot and expect to come back against this goaltender. I mean, he's won the Vezina twice, and you expect to come back against that? Not good. And especially with the shot selection, like I mentioned earlier, it just looked like they were whipping on pass. That could hold an issue with this. The reason for the whiffs could definitely be explained by the ice, but I look at shot selection tonight, and I look at just unable to really bring the puck into the offensive zone. Finally.
Yeah. Yep. And Steve upper in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Kane even said on postgame they need to play like they did in the third when the game starts. And, something nice in perspective with Evander King coming in is to have those new eyes take a look at what they need to be working on. It just seems like they got off to a slow start. Yeah, they finished pretty well, and they should be proud of what they did in the third period. Unfortunately, come on, guys. And the start like they did doesn't help things. It was just a bad luck all the way around, and they need to keep that momentum going. They need to have that hungry change throughout the game. I mean, you got to play a full 60. I remember going on to the Let's Go Sharks message boards years ago, and how we were talking about how many full 60-minute efforts this team actually brought out. So, but nonetheless, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the 60-minute effort just wasn't there, and Kane, if Kane wanted to do something tonight, he could have maybe brought a little bit more of that physical edge at the beginning. He kind of waited into the game, and I think he was just as accountable as the rest of those guys. So, c'est la vie, it's what it is. Right now, the kind of going over it. I mean, Kane does pot a nice goal. He gets his 21st of the year for Pavelski. Like I said, going against the grain with that really nice, that nice squeaker.
Mm-hmm.
And, gets his first goal in Teal.
Yeah, that was a nice goal. Went underneath the armpit of Bobrovsky. You get that in there, and hopefully that's things to come. Now for another 2-point night from Kane. He's now got a goal and 3 assists with since joining the club. The only player that didn't play 10 minutes tonight was Barclay Goodrow at 9:57. So you're looking at that. Overall, the stat wise, Chris Tiering had a great night in the faceoff circle at 91%. Eric Fair, I don't think he either didn't get any or he lost one faceoff, and he's been a dynamite centerman on that fourth line tonight. So kudos to him the past, but tonight just wasn't getting it done. Overall, the Sharks outshot the Blue Jackets 35-28. The Sharks dominated the faceoff circle 60-40. Both teams went 0 on the power play.
Well, 0 and that's just crazy. It's kind of getting comical at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, in was a joke because Columbus is the worst road penalty kill in the league. Let alone that thankfully their power play didn't score tonight. Otherwise, we'd really be on a rant for a team that's the second worst power play in the league if they had scored. So at least the PK gets its job done. It stays on top of those things. But what to go on the power play really quick, just to just break our drum, as AJ would put it. This is the power play that cost the Sharks a run at the Stanley Cup in 2006 against Edmonton. Edmonton was able to take all kinds of liberties and either take out Milan Mahalik, bloody up Jonathan Chichu, and it's simple. They can take out their best players and they can take out the Sharks because the Sharks couldn't get a damn thing going with the power play. They had some chances, I thought, early on, especially on that first power play, but then after that, they just fell apart, and that's going to cost them in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, early on, but like you had said before, the power play, it cost them in 2006. It's I don't know. I think we're beating a dead horse here. We're just kind of reiterating the same points at this point. So what do? Simplify the game. Yeah, I think that's honestly what you have to do. You have to simplify the game, and you have to kind of just go straight to the net and crash the net.
Yeah, it's just crazy. All right, they're on to us, Landy. Okay, we'll let the cat out of the bag, and then we'll stop. But me and Landy we're trying to go for that authentic Oscar feel tonight, and doing multiple outfit changes throughout the show. So we appreciate you guys having fun with it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it was KM in the chat earlier. Let's hand out some awards for this evening. Obviously the best performance by a goaltender obviously goes to Bobrovsky tonight. He had
oh
a
my
solid
goodness,
game.
that tip that Pavelski had in the slot where he just was like acrobatic. He's like moving one way and he flips over. It just like he might be the last old school goaltender who's like super acrobatic insofar as like doing a double pad stack and like making those outrageous glove saves that Nabby used to make. I mean, he is kind of a throwback.
Yeah, definitely. He's been awesome tonight. We'll also give some nominated performance to Aaron Dell as well for coming in and had a pretty decent night coming in relief of Jones. Definitely, I think he had a decent night. Best performance by a San Jose Shark forward tonight. I would kind of go with the Evander Kane, in my opinion.
Agreed.
What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. I think Evander Kane looked really good tonight. I think the fourth line, Barclay Goodrow, was a guy that kept bringing the physicality every shift. Did not take a shift off tonight. To me, he warranted a promotion, and he could have taken Hurdle's spot and really maybe gotten a little bit of the wrecking ball mentality kind of come up into that top six that sometimes they need.
Yeah, definitely. I think this team is starting to find an identity with themselves. Unfortunately for the power play, we'll stop about the power play. But you know what? They are finding an identity and they're getting it done. Jerry F in the chat. Sharks practice schedule for the next 3 days. March 5th, work on power play. March 6th, work on power play. March 7th, work on power play. Columbus go ahead.
With Thomas Hurdle also gets a Razzie. Yeah, not a great for him. Like I said, it's probably his weakest game I've seen him play this year.
Yeah, that was a rough one for Hurdle. But I mean, every now and then you're going to get those games, and it's going to be a rough one. But this is where you would hope next man or next player up. I should be more PG on that. With that, I think next player up is important for this for this team, and
and everybody kind of Steve's going to fire Steve's spot. I don't think necessarily that it's Steve Spot's issue right now. I think the biggest issue for me that I have with the power play is the lack of willingness to change it up. I think that, oh my goodness, that Peter DeBoer is so locked in to his power play units that he doesn't really like to rock the boat, so to speak. So, I feel like that's really where lies the problem. I think it's too slow to react to when there's a lot of adversity. And I think that they're just too slow to react. Like it's an 0 for 28 streak, so there hasn't been much movement on that, and then too stuck on the personnel.
Yeah, and you start tinkering around with different lines and combinations, and you don't want to go too overboard because otherwise you're turning it into a power play line blender, and you don't have much chemistry. Gen X, go fund me to buy the team from Hoska. None of this will change as long as the front office remains stagnant. Tracy Kelbot, they are the 9th best power play in the NHL. What does it say about the rest of the league? Well, to me, I think what it tells me is that the Sharks, while they struggled, they were at, I think, number 2 at one time.
Yep.
I mean that's a tough one. I will. I'll say this. I hope they can figure it out soon because again, if they expect them to win or go deep into the playoffs with a struggling power play, that's not going to happen.
No. All right. Well, I think we should start really talking about how this game and the lack of any kind of movement by the Sharks, how it affects the standings. And we're in that stretch drive.
Yep, down the stretch we come, and there were a lot of games on the schedule tonight that had some implications. So, Landy, shall you introduce it?
Yeah, kind of going over. We'll start with the Eastern Conference first. I mean, really right now it's a dogfight, kind of just how it is in the Pacific. For spots 2, 3, and wild card 1. But in the Metropolitan, you've got Washington, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh all vying for that spot right now with the Stadium Series win. Which, by the way, if you guys did not catch that, that was the Stadium Series in Annapolis, Maryland. The Ovi nets his 40th goal again.
It was his 40th goal and 598th goal of his career.
Right. So that brings them atop their division. They've got a game in hand against both Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. And let me go focus the camera over on you, Eric. They've got 81 points. So right now it is Washington's division, but not by much. I mean, Philadelphia a few months ago was losing 10 They really shifted it all the way back, and they're duking it out. They've got more points than their interstate rival with Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's got 78 points, and they're jockeying, which I don't know that we would have really brought it down and kind of said that this was how it was going to end up, but here we are. It's Philadelphia and Pittsburgh vying for second place, and vying overall for the Metropolitan. Going over to the Atlantic, I mean, Tampa Bay has it secure right now with 94 points. They're 6 points ahead of Boston, although Boston does have 3 games in hand, which could be kind of interesting. And then Toronto is in third place with 85 points. Shifting over into the wild card, New Jersey holds first wild card position with 74 points, and Columbus, with their win against the Sharks tonight, jump back into the wild card fray, and they have 71 points. But not so fast. Florida, with 3 games in hand, is winner of 6 straight, or 1 point behind Columbus. So right now, if Florida wins all of their games in hand, that would be an extra 6 points, and that would put them clear and above New Jersey for wild card 1.
And oh no, they're in the Atlantic. Never mind. I was going to say they would be right back in it with the race, but they're in the Atlantic, not Metro.
Right. I just don't see how Florida is going to be able to climb back into their 1, 2, 3 in the Atlantic. I think that their optimal chance really is going to be through the wild card. Shifting now over to the West. Nashville, who is the class of the West right now, and
Wow.
maybe vying for class of the NHL. Only second to Tampa, in my opinion, but they're pretty neck and neck. It wouldn't surprise me if we get a Nashville-Tampa final. But Nashville's 93 points. That's clear. If I mathematics,
they're 6 points ahead of Winnipeg, and they've won 8 in a row.
Right? Yeah, advanced mathematics. But Nashville's winner of 8 in a row, and Winnipeg, try as they might. I mean, but still, they're going to be. I think that they're locked in the second right now. Minnesota heads up their division with 81 points. Dallas was within striking distance as well, and I don't think it's fair to sleep on Dallas. They've got a game in hand against Minnesota, and they could jump back into the third spot. So, they're kind of jockeying for position right now, and kind of going into the Pacific. I mean, after Vegas, it gets really muddy really quickly. Vegas has 89 points, and they're just running away with this division. They have a game in hand against the Sharks, clear 10 points up. I don't see how the Sharks or anybody else for that matter can challenge Vegas for the Pacific Division crown. So I think it's going to be the California teams down the stretch here for these last, let's say, 3 spots. But San Jose holding up second place with 79 points, and Anaheim, the broken duck, so to speak, finally gotten all of its pieces back together. And look, they're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They're sitting at 78 points. It would not surprise me if they do leapfrog San Jose, just based upon strength of schedules and things of that nature. But they're right there in it. Los Angeles has got 77 points, so they're only 2 points back of the Sharks. They're right there in it. You're looking at just differentials. The way that it should be Los Angeles is second place, San Jose in third, and Anaheim in the wild card. But right now this is kind of how it's shaping up. Colorado as well. Don't sleep on Colorado. They've got a game in hand on Los Angeles. They could come back into the fray at 78 points and bump Los Angeles out. St. Louis is the enigma, and that's really where I draw the line with this. I don't see Calgary coming back into the fray. I just don't see them. I mean, they're 3-6-1 in their last 10. I think to me, you draw the line at St. Louis, and they're just the mystery right now. I mean, I know that they got rid of Stastny. I know that the dressing room's pretty divided, but
and how would you feel? Sorry to interrupt, Landy, but how would you feel if you're a Blues fan? You see one of your top players just get traded away. Now, granted, they know they were probably going to lose Stastny in the offseason because he's a UFA. But wow, that's a tough message to send to your fans and in your coaches and your players, saying, "Yeah, we're just going to sell it off now, so that way we don't lose out." And now they're paying the price, and they're 2-6-2 in their last 10, but they're still hanging on. But man, that's a tough message to send to your fans.
I think it's a tough message to send to your team, quite honest. I mean, right. It's true that they're underachieving. It's true that at going into the trade deadline, they lost 6 in a row. And quite frankly, showing little to no signs of life. I just don't understand what you're doing there when you take off a piece like Paul Stastny, and you trade him to a division rival. And the return, quite frankly, I mean, it was okay, but to a division rival, you get that return for Paul Stastny? I don't know about that one. I really don't know. And that's John Davidson, right? He's the GM there.
He's director of hockey ops in Columbus.
I'm thinking maybe Jarmo Kukalainen is Columbus.
Yeah, they both left St. Louis to go to Columbus.
Yeah, Armstrong, that's it.
Yes, Doug Armstrong.
So I don't know. I mean, I understand you're trying to get assets back for a pending unrestricted free agent. I understand where you do that, but don't you try and ship them up to the East? I mean, don't tell me
into a division rival for that matter too.
Yeah, I mean, don't tell me that Boston or Philadelphia or Pittsburgh,
or maybe even New Jersey,
Columbus. I mean, the Florida. I mean, those could all have been takers for Paul Stastny.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. And New Jersey, especially because his dad played there for a little bit as well.
Right. So, Peter, right?
Yep. So let's go ahead and do the NHL.
And one other thing to kind of bring up, because Rom Iman thinks that Armstrong will lose his job over that. He just signed a 3-year extension.
Yeah.
And so I think he's got full support of the ownership right now. But you wanted to get a reach around, right?
It's wraparound, Landy. God.
And for your NHL reach around, wraparound.
It's wraparound. All right, there are a number of games in the NHL that have implications with those playoff standings. First, in Colorado, in overtime, the Predators come back, winning 4-3. Ellis had tied it for the Predators with 1:06 left. Philip Forsberg, 1:07 into overtime, wins it for the Predators as they win 8 in a row. As we entered the day prior to this game, or as the Sharks and Blue Jackets started, the Florida Panthers held down that last wildcard spot thanks to a 4-1 win over the surging Philadelphia Flyers. Barkov, Dadonov with 2 goals, Huberdeau with his 20th on the year. Luongo gets the win as Mrazek takes a loss for the Flyers. In Quackenheim, thanks a lot, Blackhawks, for not doing anything special. The Ducks score 2 goals in each period. They win 6-3 over Chicago.
And let's stop right there for a quick second. What in the world happened to the Blackhawks this season? I mean, geez, we saw a piece that was shipped out this summer, and our Jeremy Panarin, and we saw just how dangerous he was tonight. And they ship him out for Brandon Saad. I mean, somebody's got to pay for that deal, right? Somebody, I mean, I don't know, man. That just seems like a complete mismanage there, a complete backfire. What do you think on that?
That backfired big time. The same with bringing Shark back.
The Yarmelson trade as well.
Yeah, the Yarmel. I mean, but this is what happens. You get caught at the end with, you can only work it so much to get the to have the casualties actually work out in your favor, and now it finally caught up to Chicago, unfortunately.
If you're Stan Bowman, do you entertain trading Jonathan Toews this offseason?
Only if you're getting the boatload back, and the rate at the trade deadline was going. If you can get the same amount, if not more, at the deadline for Toews, maybe you do it. Maybe you start a different era, but that's going to be tough to sell to your team.
Well, I mean, you look at the contracts they have right now. I mean, the Brent Seabrook contract is just completely hampering their ability to do anything. I mean, it was bad. I mean, and that they're on the hook for a long time. I mean, do you go maybe to a buyout, or do you try and go to Vegas, or try and go to Arizona and be like, hey, we'll give you some draft picks and we'll give you some assets to take on Seabrook's contract, because right now that it is just an anchor around the net.
Yeah, again, that's a tough one to sell. And man, I would hate for them to have him go to Vegas, but they can afford it, and they have the picks to send off to Chicago. That Chicago desperately needs to start retooling again.
Well, no, I mean, I think the thing that most people don't realize is that cap space is the commodity here. So they're getting the cap space back. It would take, basically, the way that it would work to me is you ship off some kind of low-level prospect or low-level pick, whether it be a 4th, 5th, thing like that. But basically, Chicago then gives Vegas a second and Brent Seabrook, either with Chicago retaining half of the salary, or retaining a quarter of the salary, something, but they get back the cap space in return.
Yeah, no, and looking in the chat here, some people are saying maybe Keith goes, but maybe not Seabrook.
But Keith's contract is a lot more friendly because it was one of those backloaded deals or front-loaded deals, excuse me. So the cap hit is not too horrible for Duncan Keith. But oh my goodness, I mean that is just You basically you sold your soul to the devil for that one. You basically sold your soul for 3 cups, and now you got to face the consequences. I mean, yeah, you got your 3 cups, but boy, you just wonder how much this is going to hamper the team going forward for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and Jerry F in the chat with an interesting statement. I'd rather have 3 cups than be in Chicago and then be in Chicago's position as they are now. Yeah, I mean, and it's tough. It's tough to deal with that. But yeah, Ronco says I'd even take LA's recent history. Man, that's a tough one. Yeah, they got 2 cups, and definitely don't have that I don't want to say curse with pulling off the reverse sweep, but man, oh man.
All right, well, going back over to the scores, we'll head over to that Golden Knights Devils game.
Yeah, the Knights somehow find a way to get it done again. They beat the New Jersey Devils 3-2. However, Taylor Hall scores in that game, and he continues his unbelievable streak in getting at least a point in a game. But however, the Knights do go to 89 points with the victory in regulation, no matter against New Jersey. In Minnesota, the Wild continue to keep clawing their way to hang into the playoff chase. Jason Zucker gets 2 goals in the second period with 40 seconds apart to secure the Wild's 4-1 win over Detroit. Detroit looking like they're going to be missing the playoffs for the second year in a row. In Carolina, they did not Cam Ward this bitch, as Drew Barber would say. The Jets win 3-2. Paul Stastny, we were just talking about him, gets the game-winning goal, his 14th of the year, as Connor Buck gets the victory for the Jets. And the Jets look like they too can still be a team that can make some noise, and it'll be white noise with the whiteout.
And Stastny's game-winning goal came as the puck bounced off a ref and went to him, and he scored into the wide-open net.
Oh, and enjoying.
We have a turtleneck to announce.
Mr. Kevin Lacey, I know you're not feeling good. How are you, bud?
I'm here live on the teal carpet for the post-game awards show. I'm here joined right now by Troy Grosnick, who looks lovely in a navy blue and baby blue jersey combo, but still wearing his Barracuda mask.
Awkward. I know you were talking in the chat about the goaltending situation of in the Sharks organization, and there are people besides Antoine Bibeau in it tonight, or in it for the Sharks.
They're just not on the Barracuda.
Yeah.
As I've jokingly said, the new Sharks 365 campaign is sign up and get to be a backup goalie for Antoine
Bibeau. Nice. That's good. But yeah, well, speaking of the Barracuda, they had a nice weekend this weekend.
Yeah, they beat the Ontario Reign earlier today, 2-1 in shootout. I didn't quite actually get the details of that game, so I'll pull them up right now. But I know some folks in the chat who were mentioning the ice, and that's just kind of what happens when the Barracuda play earlier on. But oh wow, looks like Michael Brodzinski got the game-winning goal for the Barracuda. I don't think I would have predicted that. So
in the shootout, go figure.
Wasn't he buried in the E for a while?
Yeah, most of last season it was either in the E or just sitting playing on his cell phone upstairs.
The Pine Pony.
What's that?
You riding the Pine Pony?
Yeah. Not even that. They just shoved him up in section 210 there for half the season last year. So. I mean, he's getting time this season now because the Barracuda, I mean, between the call-ups, the injuries they've sustained at both the NHL and AHL level, I mean, if you're in the Sharks organization, if you're a pro in the Sharks organization and you're not playing on the Barracuda roster, that's a bad sign because
right. I mean, it should be if you're really looking for a job or really looking to build your stock, the time is now.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm looking over the roster, and I believe they had 4 players on tryout today, just from the ECHL. So they definitely have spots available. And so now that we're going to get into the end of the college season and junior seasons and whatnot, we might see some of these players. If Dylan Gambrell turns pro, he might get a few games in with the Barracuda down the stretch, guys like that. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, it was good to see Chartier get that game winner the other night.
Yeah.
How is he looking?
Rourke Chartier's had a real tough time this season. I mean, obviously the depth just hasn't been there. O'Regan, he's obviously gone now, but Danny O'Regan, I won't say took a step downward because he didn't. He was still the leading scorer on the team, but he had a tougher time not having wings to play with. And Rourke Chartier's kind of in the same boat as that. But then on top of it, he's had at least 2 concussions documented this season. And he already had a concussion history from his junior career. So just getting into the lineup has been the biggest story for Chartier. So basically anything positive he can take, such as that game-winning goal in OT he had last weekend, that's what he needs to focus on going forward. Just get his game back up, and hopefully he can be an option for the Sharks down the road, maybe second half of next year.
What about this new guy that was signed, Vincent? No, Vincent
Raplin.
Oh yeah, Switzerland.
I don't know too much about him, but I do know that or at least I recall, he's a bigger body. He's put up decent numbers in the Swiss league, and the knock on him, from what I understand, is his skating. And you can say, well, he's performed better in the Swiss league because it's the Swiss league. But I've actually been to Swiss league games and I've watched them online, and that league's not as slow as you would think. So if he can still produce in that league, he might have a shot at producing in the AHL. But I just don't know enough about him as of right now, unfortunately. So
good.
Go immediately to the Barracuda, or is he still?
Well, I believe he's in the Swiss League playoffs, which start this week, if I'm not mistaken. So it wouldn't be until after his team is eliminated. Let me pull some out there.
Also, I'm just kind of looking through here. Have we heard anything about Noah Rod coming over?
Well, Noah Rod's got that clause in his contract
clause,
where he will only play in the National League in Switzerland, or I mean, he might be a guy that comes over again once Genève Servette is eliminated from the playoffs. I think they're going to the playoffs, but I know they've been having financial troubles, so I don't really know where that team's at right now. But I think Rode might come over for the last couple of weeks of the AHL season because the Barracuda probably aren't going to the playoffs. But again, I think that clause in his contract really hinders his development, because I don't know what else he really has to prove in the NLA, or the National League. Sorry, it's not the NLA anymore. But he's not lighting that league up. So he really needs to prove himself in the AHL. And if he's not willing to do that, I just don't see him ever playing a game for the Sharks.
Right. What about have any thoughts on Jacob Jackson coming from Michigan Tech, or Maxim Lutunov coming out of University of Connecticut? Both will be going into their God help us senior years.
I can't believe who? Sorry,
Jake Jackson and Maxim Lutunov.
Oh, Max Latunov is Max Latunov. I like his skill set. He's just got The big thing for him has been adding weight. I know he did add some weight in the off season last summer, but still he probably weighs about 130 pounds after that. I'm being facetious here, but still he needs to just continue to develop his strength, because he's definitely got good hands. He's got speed, and a big thing with these developing kids is, can you skate at the same level when you add 20 to 30 pounds? And that's going to be the big thing for Letunov, because I definitely think there's some upside with him. As far as Jake Jackson goes, I haven't seen too much of him outside of the development camps, and he's okay.
What about Noah Gregor?
Noah Gregor, I think it's just a consistency thing, because I mean, there are games where he just looks, well, he doesn't look anything. He's completely invisible. And it's like, what is going on? I came out here to watch you, and I'm watching all these other kids, and you're supposed to be a top performer. But then there's other games that he puts up 4 points. So it's a consistency thing with him. He's at least, I believe he's got another year of junior next year. Although
I know he's up for contract.
Yeah, now I think about it, he was an overage draft.
He's 20 right now. Yeah. He's 20 right now. So him and the new kid the other kid that the Sharks undrafted free agent. Oh my God, Jaden Habegawatz. Yeah.
Habegawatz is a buyer beware for me. Just because we all remember Nikita Yevpalov.
Yevpalov's situation here.
Or if you pronounce it like Fonseca is Hufflepuffs.
Yevpalov, Nitikity Yevpalov. But I digress. Habegawatz is going to be really interesting to see. I think he's going to be, if he does play for the Barracuda here at the end of the year, he's going to be the one everyone should keep their eyes on, because of how much he's torn up the junior league this year.
And it's interesting too, we bring that up, but just looking at his progression, I mean, going through midget, through AAA, he had 66 points in 42 games played. It's interesting though, his first year, 2014-15 for Moose Jaw, he only had 8 points in 59 games, and then immediately springs up in the next year to 41 points in 69 games. And then last year, 101 points, followed by 113 point season. It's really interesting to see the way that he's kind of progressed through the junior system. And note that I'm saying it correctly. It's junior, not juniors. And it's just kind of interesting the way that he's progressed.
Yeah, I agree. I say buyer beware on Habegawatz, but because of Yevpalov, another guy I'm a little reminded of is Brendan Shinneman, who kind of had the same trajectory, and he's off playing in, I believe, Finland. But I mean, 214 combined points over the last 2 seasons. Hey, he's a free pickup for the Sharks. There's nothing wrong with that.
He's a little small size. He kind of he kind of reminds me of like a Johnny Gaudreau, 5'8", 160 pounds. There's not a lot on that frame, and not really a lot to build on. I mean, he's 20 years old and he's still 5'8", so I don't think he's got much more ceiling left.
Right. But hey, there's also guys like Tyler Johnson and my boy Victor Arvidsson and so undersized guys that who cares how big they are, if they can put up the points, they're gonna get jobs. So
absolutely,
hopefully this is a case of that.
How tall is Joe Pavelski? What's he listed as? 6 foot?
I think he's listed as 6 foot, but I think he's in reality 5'10".
He's 5'11", I think is what they state on here. So we're talking like 5'10" on a good day.
Well, I'm 5'9", and he's taller than me, so I'll give him that.
Yeah, let's not make fun of the short people here. All right.
Skylar has
well, Andy's like 6'8", so
yeah, right.
6'2", but Skylar is asking Kevin, how do you feel about the San Jose Sharks on the prospect pool? No big hitters, but are there some diamonds in the rough?
Well, Gambrell to me is the big key right now. He's the one that always jumps in my head. I wish I could say Josh Norris, but
he was just trolling. He was a very very safe pick for that position,
right, and
that the Sharks picked in.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Man, we were talking about goalies earlier, and talk about Halbigawatz being a free agent pickup. Josef Koronash, the goaltender for the Czech junior 20 team, he's another one. I've liked what I've seen of him every time I've seen him. So he's very poised. He's got good size. It's most goaltenders that age, it's a consistency thing. So for him, it's a matter of, if he falls out of form, that's when the goals go in. But if he stays point, you look at Martin Jones. Martin Jones is a guy where when he's stable in the crease, he gives up very few goals. It's when he's moving around, that's the problem. Right. And I think that Koronash is the same kind of goalie there.
And it's interesting too that I mean, the goaltending coach is Evgeny Nabokov, because we all knew how jumpy,
yeah, that's a good point.
He was. I mean, if you want to talk about guys who was like hopped up on crack or like had too much caffeine in the jitters, it was definitely Nabby. So just kind of interesting.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's just crazy. I just have freaking Drew ask me 20 questions. It drives me insane.
Two other guys, Skylar, that you might want to keep your eye on. Scott Reedy was somebody that Doug Wilson, specifically in that Facebook Live production that they had, was somebody he called out by name. He said, you look out for him. But the other guy that I kind of look at, who's kind of I was talking to Jacob McGrew. He's kind of got a little bit of an interesting ceiling, and kind of again on a little bit of the smaller side, 5'11", 190 pounds, but he's kind of got an interesting kind of, maybe a little bit under the radar kind of season in the prospect pool for the Sharks.
What I like about Jacob McGrew is the fact that he missed all of last year due to injury. I can't remember what injury it was, but he missed the entire year. And the Sharks still drafted him anyway. So, I mean, we dig on the Sharks scouts a lot, but they clearly saw something in this kid that they said, don't care about him missing a year. He's that good. So I'm really curious to see how he does. Hopefully he'll be at the next development camp this summer. I'm really curious to see what they see.
Right. I think the other thing too that we should bring up is most of the Sharks, I would say C to B level prospects are going to be they're in college.
Yeah.
They put a lot of emphasis in the last 2 to 3 drafts on drafting college players, and it's always kind of a crapshoot because college players take a little bit longer to develop. They also, the to reward is a little bit higher, to be quite honest, because they just don't have the breadth of sample games. So you really don't know what you're getting. So it's kind of interesting that the Sharks have kind of focused a lot on the college system in this last kind of little bit. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you, Lacey, because I listened to Teal 10 Glasses the other day, but something that I have kind of kept going over in my mind is, are we going to see some rewriting of the contract, the contractual negotiations between college, AHL, and NHL teams?
Oh, I see. I know where you're going with this. First, I just want to mention Scott Reedy real quick. Yes, I do like Scott Reedy a lot. I thought he was one of the most impressive players at the development camp last summer, and he's got 15 points in 35 games for the Golden Gophers in Minnesota this year as a freshman. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but as a freshman, those are pretty good numbers. Those numbers will go up when he gets to his senior year. So he's definitely, that's a good call, Andy. As far as your question goes, there has to be something in the next CBA because we're going, I call it kind of the Mike Van Ryn rule, because Mike Van Ryn's the first player I can recall who left his the team he was drafted as a college free agent, used that loophole to go sign with another team. I believe he went from the Blues to the Devils and that. And even after that, we didn't really see graduated seniors just decide, no, not gonna sign with my team until Justin Schultz. And then Justin Schultz really opened that doorway.
Because he was originally drafted by the Ducks, correct?
Yeah, I believe you're correct on that.
And then of course Edmonton won the Justin Schultz sweepstakes. I remember that was a big deal for them because of course they've been thin on the blue line for a long time, but it just seems like this is becoming more and more of the in vogue thing for college player to do. I mean, we also saw that last year with Nashville and
Jimmy VC a couple years ago. Last year, Will Butcher.
Right.
Yeah. Ian Reed. Oh, what did he say? Ian Reed had said, he wants Gambrell signed with the Sharks this year because he doesn't want the Sharks to put themselves into a situation of losing a player like him to free agency when he becomes a senior. And that's a really interesting take on that. And in that respect, I do think you have to warrant consideration for that, because I've heard Troy Terry, the all USA kid who made the Olympic team this past year. There's a lot of rumors about him not signing with the Ducks as well. So yeah, they've got to close that loophole. I don't know what they got to do.
The Sharks have had really good success though, signing their college free agents and not letting them go down to the wire. I remember Danny O'Regan being one of the kids that the Sharks did well on. So I don't see the Sharks. They don't normally bust too much on their college drafting and re-signing. I don't really see that in their MO, but it is something that I think needs to be addressed come next CBA.
Great. I agree.
Okay.
Just a couple of things in the chat just to kind of hit on, Gen X is saying that it's not hitting on every first round pick. It's hitting on any of them. The Sharks' quality of NHL player drafted around by Ramas Bauer, the third in the league in the last decade. A couple of things. Mike Nevis is making a point that they've been heavy on the U.S. national development team recently. KM, of course, saying the thing that's always saved the Sharks in the drafting department is they find diamonds in the rough late rounds. They're trying to with their draft in the last three or four drafts, really focusing on that Joe Pavelski-esque type player coming out of college. Mm-hmm. It's their MO. It really is. And Josh Norris, another kind of guy, kind of like that. Not really, not in his draft class was thought of as a safe pick. Thought that the Sharks could have gotten him in with their second rounder, and didn't really take a gamble on that one. So yeah, I agree. Really heavily scouting out the U.S. national development team and really scouting out college players. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
No. Go ahead, Eric.
My last question on the prospects is this, guys, and I'll ask both of you: if Gambrell is signed when the University of Denver season ends, is it more beneficial for him to go back as a senior for better development, or to go down to the San Jose Barracuda? Or let's say there's an injury to and heaven forbid we have another injury on the Sharks, that he goes straight up to the NHL, kind of like what Matt Carl did about 10 years ago. And granted, Carl was a defenseman, but what would be better for his development?
Development wise, I don't think that. I mean, in your junior year, that's really kind of what's going to dictate if you're going to kind of make that next step and go into the professional leagues, or if you're going to kind of ride out your college career. I don't think, the Sharks have always been really good about letting guys who want to get a degree to finish college. They've always been really good about that. So they'll leave it up to the choice of the player if he wants to finish his degree, but they'll also extend out that invitation to come up to the pro level. I mean, look at Justin Braun. He kind of fit that mold of a player coming from college. Also, like I said, the aforementioned Pavelski. So best as far as development wise would be going to the Barracuda. But can you really ask a guy to take a hit for his college education so he can get a fast track to the AHL now? I don't know.
Kevin, what do you think? Would you be better staying in Denver, going to the Barracuda, or just going straight up to the Sharks?
So, okay, if he turns pro, I think they do need to bring him to the Sharks, because by that time it would probably be playoff time. If the Sharks are in the playoffs, he'd be a black ace. I don't think there's any problem with having the young kids being black aces. It's when they lose game time in the AHL, for example. That's what, like Balsers, for example. I had a big problem with him getting called up because he's not going to gain any experience from a couple of practices and not playing.
Right.
But as a black ace, you're watching how these guys perform at the playoff level and how intense they get. So I don't think that's an issue. If he were to stay in college, I think that he needs to. I mentioned Troy Terry earlier. Troy Terry and Dylan Gambrell are both in their junior year of college. I think it's one of those things. If Troy Terry turns pro, Gambrell needs to turn pro, because they both play on the same line and they're instrumental in each other's success. In turn, I think if Gambrell turns pro, then Terry needs to turn pro. I really think that they'll suffer in their senior year without each other. I mean, you'd like it not to be the case. You'd like him to be the stud player that he could be and say, Dylan Gambrell doesn't need Troy Terry. But I think in the safety of it, he might be smart to play off of his line mate in that respect.
So do you think the Sharks try and sign Terry?
Yeah, I do, because if the Ducks really are concerned about Troy Terry not re-signing with them, this is their summer that they're going to do it. So if that's the case, the Sharks need to take the same step and do it. Gambrell really, in terms of development, I don't know if he can really develop anymore at the college level. I mean, he's been consistently over a point per game player all 3 years, including his freshman year. So,
yeah, I agree. It's just going to be, to me, it's going to all fall back if it's degree or not. The Sharks have done well with those college players and let them finish their degree under the stipulation that they're going to come play for the team. So,
yeah. By the way, guys, you haven't been able to see it, but I have changed my jersey 19 times.
Absolutely. Bravo. Well, with that, I will let you have your Oscar acceptance speech first before we get out of here, and then I'll turn it to Landy. So, Kevin, congratulations. What would you like to say to your fans?
Well, geez, this comes as such a shock. I didn't expect that I'd be here standing up on stage with you this evening. Wait, why are you playing the music? I haven't even gotten into the bulk of my speech yet. Wait.
Dang it, I was trying to get the music going first.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just keep going then. I would like to thank Puck Guy for inviting me on the show, and for Eric Landy asking me these awesome that's so I don't even know where to go from here. I'd like to thank Oscar, my limo driver, and
where can the people find you really quick?
Oh, they can find me on Twitter. They can find me on Twitter at KevinLacey22. Thank you. Good night.
Landy, your acceptance speech and where the people can find you.
Yeah, I think that the Sharks should definitely go all in on John Tavares. What else? What other pipe dreams can I think of? No, you can.
USA is brought to you by Snickers.
No, everybody can find me at Eric Landy. Of course, you can see it on my title bar. First name, last name
Back.
on any of your social media platforms of choice. And yeah, come find me, come follow me, come talk. And I love to always talk to hockey.
Yes. And I am Eric. You can always follow me at PuckGuy14 on the Twitter and Instagram. Special thanks to the winners of the best interactive postgame show on YouTube. Players, to all my constituents. I can't do it without you. As Landy just makes a perfectly timed yawn. Thank you so much. We get a couple of days off, so we'll be back with you following the game against St. Louis on Thursday night. That is Earthquakes night, San Jose Earthquakes night. Not let's make sure you wear a hard hat to the building night. We will be back with you then on Thursday, and if anything breaks, we will bring it to you live. But of course, check us out on tealtownusa.com for all your info in chat. I think Felix put out something, Ian's put out something as well on there. So if you haven't checked it out, I have some time off, considering I was given a blindside hit on during the weekend, but nonetheless, hit us up at tealtownusa.com and check us out on your favorite podcatcher, iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, YouTube. You can do that. Kevin, you said you had one more thing before we get out of here.
Also, the Barracuda play on Friday and Saturday against the Cleveland Monsters for the very first time ever. So, or at least at home. So go check that out on Friday, SAP Center.
The Friday is at a 7:30 start.
7:05.
7:05.
Saturday is the blackout game, and that's at 5:15, I believe.
I'm still going to be biased and say this was a better jersey than replicating black armor.
But we didn't get free ones of those.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right. Diverge into Teal Town conversation.
Jersey Charkin.
Yeah.
So with that, we'll be back with you on Thursday. Until then, keep it real, keep it teal, keep it real teal. We're off to the Vanity Fair party. Good night, everyone.
To your